Hey guys, it's Britt. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Germany, Russia, and natural gas, and is Europe on the verge of catastrophe? Now, last week, Nord Stream 1 pipeline was shut down for annual maintenance, supposedly for 10 days. It's supposed to come back online this Friday. But there's a lot of speculation that when Friday arrives, the gas will no longer flow. And in fact, we got word just this morning, a couple hours ago, in an exclusive from Reuters, that Gazprom has declared force majeure on its gas contracts to Germany and said that gas will be suspended indefinitely as far as delivery. So what does this mean? If this happens, now this could just be a pressure being applied by Russia to generate some sort of negotiated settlement with Germany to get some concessions from them, to get some concessions from Europe. Or it could be that they're cutting it off. If they do, the implications are dire. Germany, its economy, will go into an immediate depression because they're going to lose probably about half their energy when all is said and done, and industries are going to have to shut down. There's going to be ripple effects through their banking system, through the whole European banking system. It's going to pull all of Europe into depression, and I believe the entire world into depression. So let's dive into an article and start looking at this now. This first one is titled, Germany Stockpiles Gas Supplies Amid Fears of a Russia Cutoff. Germany is filling up its gas deposits, diversifying its supply, resorting to coal plants, and urging the population to save fuel as the war in Ukraine exposed its dependence on Russian gas and its vulnerability to an energy crisis looming on the horizon. I would say that crisis is here. Winter is coming, and so are the uncertainties it entails. The Nord Stream pipeline that pumps Russian gas into Germany is undergoing maintenance work that's due to be completed by July 21st, that's this Thursday, pending the delivery of a turbine from Canada. Now, that turbine supposedly has been released. Canada has broken its own sanctions and sent that to Germany, supposedly to send to Russia. They're trying to take away any excuse Russia has for not delivering this gas, but Russia's going to do what they're going to do. I don't think they really need an excuse. If they're going to cut it off, they're going to cut it off. If they aren't, they aren't. Before the repairs began, the Nord Stream flow had already dropped by 60%. There are fears in Germany and beyond that Russia will choose to make the cutoff permanent. Germany has, since June 23rd, been in a state of alert due to the drop in Russian gas supplies and burgeoning energy prices. As of last Monday, when work on the pipeline began, the German government insisted the flow of gas was guaranteed. They're basing that guarantee on, well, we have contracts, right? Well, yes, you have a contract, and according to Reuters, Gazprom just declared force majeure, which means forces beyond its control made it unable to deliver or guarantee delivery on those contracts, and did not intend to declare the maximum state of emergency, which would allow the state to intervene in the market to regulate supplies. Climate and Economy Minister Robert Habeck on Tuesday broached the possible rationing of gas, which would be applied to industry before consumers. I don't know why they're talking about the possible rationing of gas. They've already been doing that. It's going to continue well into winter, well into next year. A permanent or long-term interruption would have massive consequences, he warned, urging citizens to pay attention to their energy use. During his traditional summer interview, Olaf Scholz, Germany's chancellor, also warned that many people would struggle to afford a rise in energy prices. And then the rest of this article goes on to describe some of the measures that the government plans to take to try to take away some of the pain that consumers and businesses are going to feel from these high energy prices. And so think about this. When you have high inflation, how do you fix that? You have prices are determined by supply and demand, right? And so you have the supply of gas going down, And so if you're not going to do anything to make that go back up, then the only way to get the price to come down and to alleviate some of the pain for these consumers and businesses is going to have to be to lower demand. Instead, they're going to subsidize it, keeping demand artificially high, which is going to just make the problem worse. So here we have a problem created by the government, an energy crisis created by the government through all these green initiatives that left them dependent on Russia, and then the actions they've taken to sanction Russia that are leading to this. And now their solution is going to be to make the problem even worse. The problem they created, their solution is going to make it worse. You can't make this stuff up. So let's move on to this Zero Hedge article. It says, top energy regulator warns Germany won't survive winter without Russian natural gas. Germany is grappling with its worst energy shortage in decades, as it might not meet the threshold of adequate natural gas reserves before winter. Germany's national Sunday newspaper interviewed Klaus Müller, head of the Federal Network Agency, the government regulator of electricity, gas, telecommunications, post, and railway markets, who warned natural gas inventories are nearly 65% full, and it's better than in previous weeks, though not enough to go through the winter without Russian gas. Now, in a typical year, they would go into the winter months with 90% or more of their storage capacity for natural gas filled up. And they're not going to, especially if gas is cut off this week, they're not going to meet that threshold, because right now they're taking it out of storage, not putting it in. And so let's close that out. If we scroll down to the end of this article, this one really stands out. Deutsche Bank's senior economist told clients Friday that German households will be chopping a lot of wood this winter and using fireplaces for heating as a cheap alternative to expensive natural gas. Now, a couple of things stand out on that one for me. First, firewood isn't going to remain a cheap alternative to natural gas, because prior to the invasion of Ukraine, it was about 90 euros per load of firewood in Germany. Now it's something like 450, and that's only going to rise. The other thing, you have to have a fireplace in order to burn firewood, and a lot of modern homes may not have fireplaces. They may have gas logs installed in there, if they even have a fireplace at all. So this isn't necessarily the easiest solution, and what it tells me is the impact that this is going to have. If gas is cut off from Germany, their economy goes back in time about 150 years, to the point where people are chopping wood in order to heat their homes. And that's going to have major repercussions when you're talking about one of the largest economies in the world, the tie-ins they have with the international banking system. You're talking about the whole financial system being in complete chaos if this happens. So then, continuing on Zero Hedge, we had this article about Germany's energy crisis about to get even worse as Rhine water levels plummet. So they're having drought in Germany, and the Rhine it isn't as high as it normally is. So it says, what has already been a year from hell for Germany, which is suffering energy hyperinflation as a result of Europe's sanctions on Russia, and which is facing the biggest crisis the country has ever had, according to the president of the German Employers Association, is about to get even worse as the declining water level of the Rhine River, which has historically been a key infrastructure transit artery across Germany, continues to fall, and as it does, the flow of commodities to inland Europe is starting to buckle, threatening to make an already historic crisis even worse. So as you see, the Rhine is this major shipping artery right through the middle of Western Europe. And if we come down to the bottom of this article, we hit something which is absolutely stunning. It says, because of the tight coal market and low Rhine levels making it hard to deliver the fuel, only 65% of Germany's coal capacity will be available in coming months. Now think about this. Germany, because of its green policies, they've taken, I think, half of their nuclear power plants offline with no intent to bring them back online again. Now they've vowed, even regardless of what Russia does, they've said that over the next 2 years, they're going to rid themselves of this dependence on Russian natural gas. We'll see if they can actually do that or not. They may not have any choice by the end of this week. They may be forced into doing that. But one of the ways that they've been compensating for the lack of natural gas, for the lack of nuclear power, is through coal, using coal. And now this is telling us that because of the low level of the Rhine, 35% of that coal capacity will not be available in the coming months. Well, when are the coming months? Winter, right? When it's going to be needed most. So this is not good. The energy fuels economic activity. And the heart of economic activity in Europe is Germany. And if Germany doesn't get the energy it needs, its economy goes into depression, and it will take the rest of Europe with it. And Europe collectively is the largest economy in the world when you add up all the nations of the EU. And that's going to bring the whole world into a depression. So on that note, we'll look at this article here from Gold Money by Alistair MacLeod, addressing exactly the same thing. It's called The Collapsing Euro and Its Implications. The euro system and its currency are descending into crisis, he writes. Comprised of the European Central Bank and the national central banks, the system is over its head in balance sheet debt, and it is far from clear how it can be resolved. Normally, a central bank is easy to recapitalize, but in the case of the euro system, when the lead institution and all its shareholders need to be recapitalized all at the same time, the challenge could be impossible. And then it goes on to discuss how the European banking system, they owe 8.7 trillion euros to the European Central Bank. 8.7 trillion, which is set to implode on rising interest rates, destroying commercial bank balance sheets, which are already highly leveraged. He goes on to say, this goes some way to explaining the deep reluctance the European Central Bank has about raising interest rates. While producer prices in key member states are rising at over 30% year over year, and consumer prices by over 8%, the European Central Bank keeps its deposit rate at negative 0.5%. It knows that if euro bond yields go any higher, their situation, which is already untenable, will disintegrate into a full-blown crisis. And I think we're on the verge of that right now, guys. We're on the verge of that. So we'll go down a little bit further, and we read, the EU has become highly dependent on Russian natural gas and oil, which in cavalier fashion it has decided to do without to punish Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. The economic consequences have been to put Germany's economy on life support, with its industrial limbs beginning to shut down, along with the productive capacity of many other EU states. In the coming months, there will be food shortages, exacerbated by lack of fertilizer supplies. Then there will be winter without heating fuel and frequent power cuts. And winter with food shortages and a continental climate is no joke. They will spark riots and growing political instability. We're starting to see some of that right now, guys, with the mainstream media doesn't like to cover it, but there's massive protest led by farmers in the Netherlands, and those protests have spread to almost every country in the European Union. Now truckers are starting to join those protests. If the farmers and the truckers go on strike, you have a complete shutdown. The economic consequences have been to put Germany's economy on, whoops, I already read that one. Let me go back. The financial consequences stem partly from bank exposure to Russian entities, but far more important is the effect of soaring producer and consumer prices on the entire Eurozone financial structure. The Euro system has depended on redistributing wealth from Germany and the fiscally conservative northern states to bail out the profligate South using suppressed interest rates. That scheme is now kaput. So what does that mean? That means Europe is massively in debt. You look at places like Greece. You heard about the Greek debt crisis from 10 years ago. Italy, Portugal, Spain, some of these countries in the southern portion of Europe, they're massively in debt. And they've been dependent on Germany and its economic might to help balance those scales. So the European Central Bank has been buying their debt, printing euros to buy it, so that the interest rates don't go sky high, because those countries are unable to pay their debt. So when you shut down the German economy, which is essentially what we're talking about, it won't come to a complete zero standstill, but it'll get hard enough that the impact will feel the same. That's going to fall over into the ability of the central bank to be on this bond buying spree and prop up these other countries, and you're going to see the debt loads blow out. In simple terms, think of it, if the European Union were a person, an individual who went out on a spending spree and bought the biggest house they could, a brand new boat, 2 new cars, a whole bunch of stuff, and ran up their credit cards. And then they wake up one day and they didn't have any income, or they lost half of their income. And they were just making enough to get by and make those minimum payments so that the whole thing didn't fall apart. Well, it's fallen apart. That's what's happening in Europe right now. It's just falling apart. When you see shocks to a system like this, where you just have a complete shutdown and things start to fall apart, you're going to see supply chains break up. You're going to see, Germany supplies components to other parts of the European Union, to China, to Russia, to the United States. We live in a interconnected global world with a global supply chain, so you can't just blow up one of the largest economies in the world and have the rest of the world be insulated from that. If this happens, if Germany is cut off from Russian natural gas, we will have a global depression, no doubt about it. A major shock like this, it's going to lead to social unrest, as Alistair MacLeod said. And we're already starting to see it. We've seen what happened in Sri Lanka when they were cut off from fuel and food. And we're going to see that same thing happen in various countries all over the world. And that type of thing leads to the rise of demagogues. It leads to the rise of extremist political parties. We saw it 100 years ago in Europe when you had the Weimar hyperinflation and Hitler tried to take over, and he didn't succeed. He got put in jail, but he was left alive and he came back later. And when the Great Depression hit, he took full advantage of that crisis to seize power. And we may see something similar happen in Europe when people can no longer eat, when they can't heat their homes, when people are freezing over the winter. They're going to look for somebody who has the solution, the answer to that problem. And they're going to give power to that person. And so whether or not all of this immediately leads to the rise of who we know is the Antichrist that will take over a revived Roman Empire during the tribulation, whether this is the lead up to that or not, remains to be seen. But I think that all of this is setting the stage for a united Europe that is down now. They're hurting now. But this is going to be a wake-up call, and they're going to come back from this stronger. And the Bible says eventually they will conquer the entire world. So guys, like this video, share this video, let others know what's going on. This is going to have implications for everybody, regardless of where you live in the world. This is going to have huge implications. If Russian gas is cut off and Germany doesn't get it, if Europe doesn't get it, we're going to have a global depression, and it's going to affect each and every one of us. So be on the alert, and thank you for joining today, and God willing, we'll talk again. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.